like to call the Port of Newport regular monthly commission meeting to order. Today is Tuesday, February 25th, 2020. It is 6 o'clock. Just a reminder to members of the public to sign in. Everyone signed in. Any changes to the agenda?
None here.
Okay. Take this time for our first public comment. If anyone has any? Okay, no public comment. Consent calendar. Any changes to the consent calendar? Or make a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I move. Go ahead.
So moved.
All in favor?
Second.
Aye.
Aye.
Oops.
I did.
Okay, old business. Items removed from the consent calendar. Accounts paid. Anything on that? Comments? Okay, new business. Page 59.
We need to approve the council.
Oh, we need to approve the accounts paid, please.
I move that we approve accounts paid.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, new business, page 59, please. All right, so resolution 2020 XX, adopting supplemental budget for fiscal year 2019-2020, making appropriations. Mark Brown.
So, to add to the staff report, first of all, we have $100,000 in reserves just in case of emergency for NOAA. What I've discovered today, in addition, this item was budgeted last year in a non-capital asset category, which is personal services, so it'll be fixed next year.
Mm-hmm.
We have a policy on capital outlay, which is above $5,000 with an expected life. So that's where it should have been budgeted in the first place. So that's what we budget in the future. What this movement is doing is simply moving money from the reserves into the capital outlay to give us the ability to replace the camels and replace the anoids.
Okay. Any questions from the commission?
No.
Comments, questions? Anyone want to entertain a motion?
What's the resolution number going to be?
2020-01.
2020-02.
02. Okay, thank you.
I move that we adopt resolution 2020-02, adopting a supplemental budget for fiscal year 2019-20, and making appropriations.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, move on to item B, resolution 2020-03, authorizing use of local government investment pool, designating signers and authorizing refinancing of loans. Mark.
So later on, you're going to see another movement to financial institutions. As we move financial institution, there's a possibility that our current financial institution will say, well, we're not going to continue to give you really nice rates for your money you have set aside. Number two, this particular fund, the local LGIF, we'll call it for, to make it easy, is actually designed for government institutions for short, medium, and long-term. To have money set aside long-term, it's not easy to get at, quite frankly. You can get at it through ACH, etc., but it provides, in general, a better rate of return than we can get at most financial institutions. And their number one priority is to preserve the capital.
Mm-hmm.
The annual rate has been about 2.38% in the short-term fund. That's what it is currently. can't tell you what's been in the long-term fund. But this would give us a chance to set aside, for instance, the NOAA bond money, the $1.735 million in that fund to earn additional monies.
Mm-hmm.
It's just an investment opportunity with very low risk that gives us a good rate of return.
Any questions on that?
So, is there an estimate of how much quantified we could make effort, or if this would make us a status quo?
Now, there's two scenarios. The current financial institution says, sure, you can keep it here, but you'll give us anywhere from 0.1 to 0.03% interest, the difference in interest, on $1.7 million to start with. Even on $1.7 million, I wouldn't want to venture a guess, because I would be guessing. I don't want to give any bad information.
Okay.
I can get you that information if you so desire.
And that's the only money we're planning on using this fund for, or we don't know yet?
We don't know yet. What we would do is, if the commission, when we do our budget, decide there needs to be set asides that we can't touch for the year, that money would move over there. It would just make it harder for anyone to touch.
Right.
Okay, or if we find we're not, if our current financial institution says, sorry, you're out of luck, then we'd have a different amount that would be going over there.
And this, and that would be for 1 year, so these are annual?
Once we had an account with them back in 2012, and I believe there may have been some financial issues or something. I don't know the whole story, don't know the background, but they closed the account. It is not an annual renewal. Once you're in it, you're in it.
Oh,
Okay, unless you withdraw.
got it. That's flexible.
And money can be pulled out with a penalty, I'd imagine, if you,
Without penalty.
without penalty. It is just harder to get out.
Yeah, it's just a little more difficult.
Okay.
There's extra phone calls.
Right, right. Anyone want to make a motion at this time?
Yeah, I move that we approve resolution 2020-03, resolution authorizing use of local government investment pool, designating signers, and authorizing refinancing of loans.
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, on to item C, resolution 2020-04, designating bank accounts, banking institutions, and signers. Mark again.
Well, as everyone knows, very recently we put an RFP out for financial institutions. We wanted to see what was available on the market and what they had to offer for poll. Bill sat in on the first round of that. And the first round came back to 2 financial institutions. They have the ability to automate many of the things we're doing manually. For instance, I can monitor the bank account, current checking account online. I have to do that daily to make sure there's no issues.
Mm-hmm.
Other financial institutions have what's called a sweep account. So you designate, this is the balance I want to keep. Every night, it sweeps that into an investment account to earn you more money without anyone touching it. Or it moves money back the other way if necessary to keep balance. When we did our analysis, essentially the port will have no charges, except for maybe credit card type charges. The financial institution selected in the end was First Interstate Bank. What they offer us is someone that is knowledgeable on ports as part of the team that would be developing a relationship with us. 2% of their income before taxes is donated back to local communities, and the money is kept locally. Plus, we do wire transfers for our bond payments. Currently, we have to go to the financial institution to actually execute this. With the new system, we'll be able to do it on the web. And then we'll be implementing some new technology with them. One is to scan our checks locally, so that they're immediately deposited rather than waiting. And number two, we'd be implementing a, I forget what it's called. Essentially what you do is you feed information on the amount of your checks and who they're to the bank, and they validate those so you don't get anyone washing checks. And it's just a fraud prevention activity, which is something, I heard of a case that someone got hit for several $100,000 with a wash check. So that's something we need to watch for. We have a lot of fraud prevention.
What I could add to
Okay.
that is like
Please.
we should every so often, I would say at least every 5 years, look into what are other options out there anyway for those type of services, and that's what we're doing. Just looking, because there are a few things that it was pretty clear that we needed that we're not getting as far as bank services. And I think it was pretty obvious for the team, which was Gil, Aaron, Mark, and I, that from all the submissions we got, that the two top institutions that is listed here were the ones that could provide the better options for the port. And one thing to add, and I think Mark actually put on his staff report, is that this will also be one of the cheapest transition for us, because they do offer some credit towards those costs of changing checks and a whole bunch of other things. And they certainly had a real good team that I think we can rely on for the service. So.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah,
Question?
just representing the commission, I thought Mark did a great job managing that whole process. The proposals were detailed, there was a lot of work and reading. I learned a lot just from reading all the proposals and the kind of services. Our scoring and weighting was pretty consistent among all of us. I think we're all nodding our heads. And I think we did a good job at finding the best financial institution. So I think the port did a great job in the whole entire process.
Thank you for sitting on that committee.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I want to do it again.
He's going to think twice. It's
I
complicated.
was reading those complicated proposals there.
Right.
A lot of stuff.
Would anyone like to make a motion at this time?
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 2020-04, is that right?
04 is correct.
Designating bank accounts, banking institutions, and signers. Is that right?
That is correct.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, on to item D, EDA grant award for Port Dock 5 Pier Access Project. Mark Brown.
As Aaron has been promising, there was a grant award coming. In fact, we received this grant award, 2 weeks ago? About 2 weeks ago? Yeah, an amount of $1.195,563, which requires a match of the same or better. That would replace the gangway float and Pier Dock 5. Gives us 5 years to complete, requires quarterly reports plus semi-annual financial reports. We're setting the systems in place to make sure we monitor those correctly, and we'll have a team that helps oversee this entire grant. So there'll be many people that know the details.
And just as a reminder that anytime you receive grant, it comes with attachments, and especially federal grants. So as you may have seen on the package, if you had a chance to go through it, there is always a lot of reporting, a lot of things to take into consideration, and obviously we don't want to violate any of those. I think our goal here, at least is my goal, is that we manage this grant very well, because we definitely want to go after more money for future infrastructure, and this is going to show that we are capable of well managing this type of grants. So so you may have seen here there are a lot of reporting, a lot of agreements that we gonna attach ourselves to.
Any questions or comments from Gil?
Was there anything, Aaron or Mark or anyone, was there anything you saw in that 100 pages of document that is particularly onerous or challenge or risk or anything that struck you as being, we're going to have, as you say, pay attention, but particularly pay attention?
We actually, one of the things we're doing right now is creating a system, first of all, an internal system where we're going to have every deadline, every little thing that we got to report listed so we don't miss any of that. I would say every grant has its challenges to manage, but nothing that we cannot do as long as we have a system. And that's what we're doing right now. We're creating that system so it can be done. For the most part, they want to make sure that everything is, in tune with the regulations and what we said we're going to do. So obviously, we didn't put anything, I think, with, again, all credit to Aaron, he added all the things that we could do on the application to make sure that we're not overselling ourselves. At this point in time, we have all the permits we need. We just cannot do it now because of the in-one work that unfortunately expired. We're gonna be pretty much ready. Next commission meeting, most likely we're gonna come up with either next commission or the next with the RFP for somebody to help us manage that contract. And so we will get some help from the outside because I think that's important. Because this is not the only project we have. We have a lot of other things, and Aaron has a lot on his hands with operations in order to alone manage this grant or this construction, this project. So I think the construction itself will be a quick thing. It's just the management of the project, and all the attachments that will be, I wouldn't say challenging, but at least, it'll take a lot of work. But nothing here that we fear that we cannot deliver, I don't believe.
No, I think it's all management.
So,
Just attention to detail and we'll be all right.
And and you have up to 5 years, I guess if you needed it, as you say, it's expected curable fashion.
let's hope it doesn't.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. One other question, I was looking at the budget briefly, and what struck me was contingency. There was about 25% for contingency. And I'm just curious about how you came up, how you guys came up with that number, and how that works when you have a grant like this, when you have a...
Well, you
Number one,
probably
yeah.
listen to that, but
There
it's
was-
actually a good thing.
That was, there wasn't a lot of work done on, pile driving was a big part of that. So each piling is about $10,000 a piece. So we wanted to make sure that we had plenty of money in there in case we wound up running into problems as they're driving the piling in the substrate underneath. So pile driving was one of them. Another big one was just there's the float itself was not, that is it's a delayed submission. So there's a landing float that's part of this project. And then there's also there's a new electrical box that has to be put in up at the end of the dock, up at the end of the pier. So those two things right there, we wanted to make sure we had plenty of room in there. As far as expensive stuff goes, those are two potential areas that you could run into an expensive hang up. So it was our engineer's recommendation to go with 25%.
So what just by curiosity then, what happens if you are efficient and you don't use a lot of the contingency?
So we should be able to keep it under budget. Yeah. That's where I think really some expertise in the field, keeping a really close eye on the contract is just going to be a big help to us. Because otherwise, it's easy for a contractor to come in and say, oh, it costs exactly what you budgeted for.
Right.
Look at that. So we've got a requirement in our standard RFQs that they spell out what their profit is going to be, as well as supplies, labor, materials, and everything else. And I think that with some assistance and some in-water construction management experience, we're going to be able to watch out for that, I think.
And I think that's another reason you don't do a time and materials, you do a deliverables-based budget. So if you do a time and materials,
Right.
they can expand the costs.
Right.
Yes.
And typically, in almost all those type of projects, almost any engineer would tell you to budget anywhere from 10 to 30% contingency anyway. I'm always more on the cautious side. I like at least 20%. Depending on the situation, which was in this case, we weren't sure if we're going to be able to get the project done this year or next year. And you had to take into consideration that if it didn't get done this year, next year things are always more expensive too. So that is always something to take into consideration when budgeting. But the contingency is very important.
So if you come in, let's say 15% less of your total costs, you get what happens to the federal grant remaining part of that?
Goes back to them.
It does go back to
It's
the
it's 50% they're matching. So if we
That's what I'm saying. So their part would get returned to them as well.
And ours would go down as well. So if.
Right, I understand.
yeah.
Okay.
Because it's basically a pay-as-you-go. So we fund it, and then we turn into them what we're doing. They audit it, and then they reimburse us. So if you don't do portions of that, or you don't use portions of that,
Right.
then we only get
You
reimbursed.
don't
for
get
it.
reimbursed for
Right.
the extra stuff. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the commission? Someone like to make a motion?
So go ahead. Gil.
No, go ahead.
I recommend a motion to authorize the general manager to accept the Department of Commerce EDA grant in the amount of $1,195,563, requiring a port match of the same amount.
Second that?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, next item E, Clearwater easement. Aaron.
Thank you. Owners of Clearwater Restaurant dropped in toward the end of the week before last and requested an easement because what they'd like to get done is in the future they're going to be undergrounding some of the utility lines down on the bayfront, but they want to get the line that goes across over the top of Port Dock 1. They want to put it underneath the pier now and get it in the side of the building. So they requested an easement from us. I wrote up what you see here. Basically, the angle that I would like to take with it would be to give us the most amount of flexibility we can possibly have where whatever gets done with Port Dock 1 in the future, if those lines need to get moved, it would be their responsibility to do that. Regardless of what our plans are. I sent this over to our lawyer, and he emailed me back today and said that the wording's okay on this. He did recommend a license, and I haven't had a chance to talk to you about that.
Yeah, we work, I guess the concept here is if it's a license, usually a license is for a year, and I don't think that would really, it's something we need to talk a little bit further with with Pete, but what I would recommend is that the commission would approve us working with the attorney an agreement similar to an easement that would allow Clearwater to move their lines. We can certainly bring, my preference would be to have that document here now, but it's something I think they're trying to move pretty quickly, and what we can do is bring it back to you, a copy of what we came up with, but with the approval of the attorney.
As it reads. Any questions on that, guys? Motion for approval?
I move to authorize the GM to record an easement with Clearwater Restaurant under the above conditions pending approval by the port's attorney. I don't know if I need to put any more language on that to give the leeway or whether that language is
With
sufficient.
a language substantively approved by our attorney.
Pending approval by Port's attorney, the last.
So maybe that's sufficient.
That's how I was
Just
reading
as I
it.
That should be
stated.
okay.
Okay, all right.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, item F, City of Newport amended MOU. Paula.
Right. So this is an agreement that we have been working with the city, and I have not received comments from the city on this yet. It's something we put together quite fast, and the reason being is I know they're getting ready to move a fair amount of sand out of there. I want to make sure that the agreement is properly in place. I mean, right as it stands, it's still in place, but we would like to get the city a chance to review the document. I tried to get Spencer to comment on today, but he was busy in meetings. But what I would recommend at this point in time is to, and this is just amending current memorandum of understanding we already have with them. There was confusion a bit about the truck toll that we implemented, because we implemented that for all of our users, independing who they are, because we already had an agreement with the city to use some of our sand, and that agreement says that the city is responsible for their transportation of the sand. But one thing that maybe there is confusion is that they felt they shouldn't have to pay for the truck toll, but because it was not written on the agreement. But for us, it was more like, well, this is not any different than any fees that is set across, independent of what agreement you have with us. Mm-hmm. You know, it's a transportation fee that we have for everyone coming to our property. So we sat with them, we made it clear that that's what that is. However, we negotiated with them the fact that if they had a certain amount of sand being picked up at once, that perhaps we could give a discount during that time, because then it would make sense for the port. So that is what I have here. But we also made it clear that since that truck toll may go up from time to time, that those general costs will follow the tariffs established by the port. And I felt that because the original agreement didn't have any indemnifications for either party, and we're coming to each other's property. We go and drop some of our materials over at the airport. They come and pick up our sand, and if somebody get hurt along the way, if something happens, you know, there were no indemnification. So the language that I added is indemnify each other. So it covers both of our own side, you know. So you're responsible for what you do. In other words, that's the only. And I ran that language by Pete to make sure that it made sense. So again, what I would like to do at this point is to, originally I had a motion authorizing the general manager to execute the amended memorandum of understanding as presented, but maybe I can change that as substantially presented, because we may make very minor modification if the city requests anything that it doesn't change the general intent of the agreement. Mm-hmm. Once we get comments from them. Do you have any questions?
Any comments or questions from the commission?
So that would mean that if you did need to amend it, if you sat down with the city and said, well, I would really like to change this, you don't need to bring it back to us.
As long as we're not majorly changing the intent, if it's just little language that, as long as it's approved by our attorney.
Okay.
Okay. Can I have a motion?
I move that we authorize the general manager to execute the amended memorandum of understanding as presented.
Were you going to change some language in there?
Yeah, substantially.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Sorry, I didn't mean to make it complicated.
Okay, we're going to move on to staff reports. And we're going to start with Director of Finance.
Good evening. I'm not going to delve deep into them unless you would so like me to. I'll tell you that our cash flow for the month of January turned positive. Overall for the year, it's positive, which is really nice. The units are operating above expectations for the most part. So we're exceeding revenues and we're below expenses for most, if not all of our units. So it is the 8th month, we're 67% through our year. We do have some big things coming up. I'm looking at this. So, at the SDAO conference I attended, they talked about ransomware. And they said those systems that don't have a good MSP, a managed service provider, someone that comes in and manages your network, or might have Windows 7, are going to be more susceptible to ransomware. So it's going to be really critical that we get our systems up to date. And I'll be taking care of that here in the next few weeks. You'll see an RFP mentioned for a managed service provider that will have a good agreement that limits the port liability on this, maximizes liability to a managed service provider. You'll be seeing an RFP, RFQ for an insurance agent of record. What we're trying to do, what Paula mentioned earlier, is every 5 to 7 years, we should be looking at these things. Maybe we change, maybe we don't, but we want to give that opportunity. A voice over IP system, it replaces analog phones and generally is less expensive to operate. So I could call right directly over to Bill's desk, he'd have his own number, and we could do video conferencing, etc. over that system at a lesser cost per month. Implement a new structure for our reserves, so you'll know exactly what our reserves are in our balance sheet. It actually should be in the equity section of our balance sheet. Pay equity policy, which we should have in place already, but essentially it's going to say we operate on a merit-based system, but it's really based on the skill set they bring in, and then you'll see the budget coming forward. So there's a lot going on in finance right now, is what I'm saying. Statement of cash flows on the next page. I talked about that. It's positive. You're going to see your cash flow on page 9 of your packet if you're interested in looking at it. So I'm going to move to profit and loss of general operating funds. So we should receive a total of $4.7 to $4.8 million in revenue for the year, which is really nice. We're ahead of last year significantly, and I think we're going to end up significantly ahead of that last year. Net income right now is up 112% versus last year. So again, I give someone sitting next to me the kudos on that. I'm looking for anything that's really notable for you, other than we're in really nice shape right now, and we're moving in the right direction. As we continue to evaluate things, I think you'll see good things. I do want to point out the accounts receivable section, just so you can see. So we had this last week sent out letters saying, you owe us money, you haven't talked to us. We don't want to take your vote, but if you don't talk to us, we're going to be compelled to do something. I've heard responses back from the 6 letters, 4 of them already, saying, yes, we don't want you to have a vote. I said, you're right, we don't want to have your vote. So they're making payment arrangements with us right now. Once we have those arrangements, we put them in writing, so they know what we agreed to, and we know what we agreed to. And then if they don't meet those arrangements, then we have a different discussion. It's important to note here, and I put it in there, Oregon Mariculture and Western Hunter, owned by the same person, and they're both on the way past me list. They made contact with us today, though, so we're hoping to get that really reduced significantly based on those conversations. And you'll have a list of anyone here that's owing us and has been owing us for more than 90 days. Questions, concerns, comments? It's really brief, I know. I didn't go deep into it. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so one question. So a general statement you made, actually two, was that revenues were generally good, pretty strong or above forecast, and expenses were below forecast or below budget. And so as I was reading all that, was asking myself why. So is that because of conservative approach in the budget process, or was it due to efficiencies or something else? That's the question. Oh, both. And you're a fantastic staff, of course.
Honestly, it's mostly due to our fantastic staff. The efficiencies implemented, especially by Aaron's team, has been fantastic, really. I think they have done a lot of work in trying to do the best they can to get things kind of nice, lean, and efficient. And it's working, it's showing, and some good ideas, implementing some real good ideas, things people haven't tried before. That is bringing us some additional incomes that weren't tried in the past. Again, really, we got a good team. I think things are working quite well.
So what I would recommend, and certainly in our work and reporting out to the public, is to highlight those areas so that the court district can see where those efficiencies are occurring, and we can talk about that.
Yeah, the concept here is obviously we manage public assets, and we got to manage them well. And one of the things that those guys here probably tired of hearing me saying that, so Sarah, because I talk a lot about this, is like one of the issues is, for instance, the fact that we haven't really gone after people that owe us. Some folks weren't paying us for over a year. And as much as they are local people, we want them to stay here. We don't want their boats. We don't want to take their assets. We also have public assets that we are managing. And by not charging people properly for those assets, we're not doing our jobs. And I say that, I repeat, and I keep telling these guys all the time, it's like, we just need these people to talk to us. If they're having difficulties, they need to come talk to us, and we'll figure out a way to make it work. And if they cannot afford to pay us, then they shouldn't be using the public assets. I'm sorry, but that's kind of how it works. And we do have a duty to the public to do this right, and that is one of the things we are doing. And that shows too on the books, because we are starting to get paid.
Yeah. When I started, we had about 36% owed us at 90 days or more. It's down to 21%. Okay. So two more things that I really need to cover. Captain's Reel has been sent a demand letter because they haven't paid their lease payment in a long time, and they're behind on property taxes in addition. So we had our attorney drop in a demand letter with a date of March 3rd, I believe it is. And then secondly, I want to pay on page 2 of the report, I really want to point the very first paragraph out that some tickets did go missing.
I saw that.
Yeah, and it really concerned me and some others. We have adjusted our processes. As I look, I said, well, that doesn't make sense. They're now locked up every night. So just as a safety precaution, it's cash, as far as I'm concerned. So it was disappointing for it to happen. Points out two things to me. I say it right here. Number one, we need to look at every process. I need to take a close look at it. Number two, we talk about modernization. If those tickets had been entered on the dock as the services were performed, it would have happened.
Any questions for Mark? Okay, next report, Director of Ops.
Alrighty, thank you. 171. So Seafood Wine, as you can see, our office is wrapped up. Anecdotally, it seemed like attendance was a little bit down this year. I don't have any real tangible reasons to report. Just heard some some people have said that lodging and or camping costs may be part of it. So this year we backed off a little bit of our surcharge and dry camp for sure. You never know. It could have been just that word got out on that it's expensive. It doesn't take that much in the tourism world to give somebody an impression and they change their plans a little bit. So that's possible. But I can't speak to why the festival itself. Last weekend was really busy at the boat ramp. Herring's been pretty good lately here. Coronavirus has had a little bit of an impact on our businesses that work off the hoist dock, because they generally export straight off the dock. So with exports being shut down like that, it's had a little bit of impact on them. And the crab season started to tail off really quickly here. So some boats are just looking to move into shrimp and get ready for that. Storm sewer, South Beach storm sewer, I have the second round of proposals are in. We're evaluating those right now. Grant documents were in here. We already talked about that. My main concern with those is going to be the bid documents. Get those set up properly, because there's a lot that has to be done bidding wise to make sure that we check all the federal boxes. South Beach boat ramp repair was completed. I've got some underwater pictures of the placement of that stone in there, and I think it's going to work well. We're going to get some better. The visibility wasn't really good, so we sent all of our completion documentation back to the Oregon State Marine Board to get reimbursed for that with that grant. But we're going to get some better pictures and probably do a little bit of just cleaning up down there. New cameras in South Beach. We're working on getting our 3 quotes. We should have that for you in the next meeting packet. Incidentally, that was one thing. I did get a phone call last month from just user in the marina who was concerned about wanted to see an increase in security, and I really am looking forward to getting these cameras put in, because I think it's going to change things in South Beach quite a bit. Went to the Cascade West Economic Development District work session that happened at the VAC here in Newport. That like I said, they're reworking the comprehensive economic development strategy for this economic development region. And what that does is it basically sets rules for EDA grants. So as we've been working through this, we really have some very good projects here that are really good fits for that type of funding. Because when you have an industry in a region that is really important to the local economy, and there are changes in that industry that affect infrastructure that can cause that industry to move from the region, then it creates a federal interest. And that's where we get a lot of interest on this CAP Section 107 project that we've been talking about, and the Port Knox 7 and the fishing pier work and all that stuff. People are very anxious to see these type of projects get funded and get completed. So I think that remaining involved in this update of the SEDS is important, and I've been doing that, and I think it's going to help us. I attended this Kaizen meeting with the Army Corps, NIMS, DSL, DEQ, EPA, and ODF&W was on the line as well. Basically gave them another version of the same presentation I gave the Port Commission last week on the rebuilding of Port Knox 7 and the mitigation plan for that, the fishing pier. It went pretty well. We're obviously not going to go into a meeting like that and come out of it with a permit in hand, but all the permitting agencies, including NIMS, were very happy with the detail that had gone into it. They said and I asked this specifically of NIMS because that's been a big concern of mine here. Permitting on this is how they're going to approach it. I said, is this going to be a valid strategy, do you think? And they said, yeah, it is. They said it's really just going to come down to us negotiating through the process with the numbers, getting the biological opinions completed, and how the assessment works out. But I was buoyed by my conversation with NIMS, because I called him again and spent probably an hour on the phone with him on Friday morning last week. And he said that the Port Knox, or the public fishing pier project, has a high mitigation value to it. So it's a good match, I think. And for now, we hit the ball in play is basically the way I would put it. And so now we just have to keep chipping away at it and see how things progress. I think the only thing I was going to mention is, our truck fees are working out pretty well for us. I think it's going to continue that way. And that's about all I have. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Yes.
So what, a question, Aaron, on that I was curious about was the eelgrass. How do you estimate the stock of eelgrass? Whose responsibility is that? Is that the ports or is that NOAA? Or?
It's going to be, so basically they put a lot of that responsibility on us to provide them what they're looking for under their standards so that they don't have to fund it to get, they don't fund it, they put the responsibility on us.
Okay.
And they say this is what we're looking for in general. But the eelgrass especially because, I guess DSL did a white paper on eelgrass sometime around last year and I hadn't heard of it. And the number of people hadn't either, but it's pretty interesting. I read it. It references our eelgrass over here. A little bit talks about, it mentions Steve Brumrell in it, right, and a few other eelgrass experts from the area. But one of my concerns with it is going to be that in reading several documents on eelgrass, it changes year to year just like any plant or any growth. So when you take the survey and how it does year to year matters, it seems like, because what I said is I don't want to do an eelgrass survey in year 1 that comes out X, and then in year 3 you come back and say, oh no, you need to do another one, and the whole game's changed now all of a sudden. Best I can tell you is they said, well, we'll work on that. We'll see how that works out. But I think we're at the point where in the next year, planning wise, we're going to need to start figuring out, if there's eelgrass, I'm assuming there probably is, but where it is and where it's not is important. So.
Okay, so they set the standard. NOAA sets the standard. You then do the survey or hire a team to do the survey according to their standards to make sure that there are no problems and you're doing it correctly. But as you say, the trick is the plants are dynamic. So they change and vary across time.
Well,
that can make it tricky.
That is true, and then the other variable in this is that it's based on biological opinion, which is by nature an opinion. So depending on what biologist has that opinion and how they believe it, that's another variable that comes into play. So, what type of eelgrass it is and where it's at, subtidal or intertidal, how many stocks there are per meter, all those standards are going to be part of the whole mix.
Right, that's the point of getting the standards right.
Right.
You should completely understand them, get them to interpret them if there's any confusion. That makes it harder for anyone to review it to find a problem as long as you did your work correctly.
Right.
Good.
Okay, next report. Paula.
All right. Well, let's see here. Just gonna point a few things out from my report. I think you all had a chance to read it. So today we had our last piece of training with the employees and using up that Ford Family Foundation grant that we received. I think it went quite well. And again, you all know about the EDA grant, and again, I can't give enough credit to Aaron how much work he put into getting this to come to fruition. So, really great job there. And we really, truly, we did have a lot to thank to our legislators. They did keep, their staff kept calling us, following up, make sure, have you heard anything, where things are. I'm going to make a call. They would call EDA. They stay on them. They really did. And from Schrader to Wyden and Merkley, they did an amazing job staying on this, making sure that we received this grant. And so I really appreciate all the work they've done for us. And even our local legislator, their support, making phone calls And then I want to again thank all the stakeholders for all their support letters and making sure we got this, because there are a lot of people that make this happen, really. So very appreciative of everybody's work on this. Again, I'm really excited about the fact that we're getting. I'm sure we had a good relationship with our current bank, but I think there are a lot to be done here to put our finances in order, and I think this new opportunity with the new financial institution is going to be a good one. So we're really looking forward for that. So the directors and I all attended the Special Districts Conference, and just a reminder that I would say more than half of the people attending this conference usually are commissioners, and they have a lot of things that is designated for elected officials. So I would hope that you keep that in mind during the next SDO conference, because I think it's very important to stay up with some of the requirements. Those things keep changing from time to time, and sometimes it's just a reminder. I learn something every time I go there. So the main thing that we're focusing right now is it's getting our budget ready and our goal settings. I appreciate your patience, and as we switch days here, it was supposed to be yesterday, but we're trying to make sure all commissioners are able to attend, because to me this is a very important time. It's almost like it should be more like a retreat, really, where we take half a day, and that's what I changed to. Is for March 18, we're gonna have basically half a day to focus on the things that we should really be prioritizing. And I was trying to figure out how the port has done this in the past. And the last time we did this was in 2016. And to be quite frank, I would like to do this every year. We really should try to get a focus on this every year and figure out how it was done, and what can be done the same and what should be changed. So what I'm doing right now is working through some papers that shows, first of all, some of the plans, some of the focus that our strategic plan tells us to do. And I want to show you so far too what they told us we should be doing, what we have already done, and what we continue to do, and what we haven't done yet but should come up later, and what we should focus on this year in particular. And of course, some of those we're tying to our capital improvements as well, which you see on the budget. And some of those are just things that you should be doing on a regular basis, no matter what, every year, So I'm going to make a list of that. I'm working with Mark and Aaron here to list some of the things that come into their mind as well. I'm going to list on that all the capital improvements with the years as it was proposed, so you don't have to go through the strategic plan. And then I'm going to list what the staff has budget for based on that we find that is priority for us. Of course, with that, you can come up with your own ideas. Although we are not scheduled to do this until March 18th, just a reminder that next week, Walt and I will be in D.C. for the mission to Washington, meeting with our legislators. And because of the date change, kind of messed up on vacation, I already had scheduled a little bit, so I will be gone for 11 days down in Brazil, so won't be here. With that said, I'm trying to get everything ahead of time to you guys, so hopefully by Friday you have everything you need for this. Goal settings anyway, it will give you enough time to go through. And Walter suggests that maybe you can start giving us a list of your priorities ahead of time, so when we get to the meeting, we already have those, and I think it's a great idea. So we're probably going to ask you to go through it, and if you feel like you want to go through the entire strategic plan, it's up to you. I'm summarizing because a lot of the strategic plan is history too. It's not necessarily, some of the suggestions from the consultant, but I'm summarizing those suggestions, and you can give us your opinion, what you want to see us doing, maybe 5 items that is your priority, and we'll try to list those, as we get to the meeting. I'm also going to give you a list of what was a priority back in 2016, because I actually have that information with the number of votes in terms of making the top priorities on. That way you can see what has been done, what has not, what was a big deal back then and what is not. And if you have any suggestions of things you would like to see in this goal setting before Friday, by any means let me know, and I'll make sure that we'll make it into the list of things we should be talking about it. Hopefully that will help us set the budget as well. And we will bring some information on the budget that we've done so far as well. Mark has been really hard at work trying to get that accomplished. One thing, I just want to bring this up now because Aaron has been working on this. He went to the Kaizen meeting and worked with the Corps and all the other agencies about this pier. There's been a suggestion perhaps we could separate that for the time being, just in the event. I think this year we probably wouldn't make that number one priority, or at least one of the top priorities to put in the budget anyway. What I would suggest at this time is that we, especially after Aaron's conversation with the agencies, it seems like this may be a good idea, that we could wait and see what it comes out of that. And if the next couple of years we feel like it's not moving in the proper direction as a combined project, that then we can separate that. However, we will know better what comes out of that if we do an actual plan for Dock 7 and Dock 5. And that's one of the things we will look into putting into the budget, because on it, I keep getting people sending me stuff, like right now there are the build grants out, and they're like, hey, are you gonna put an application for this? And quite frankly, to put an application for a huge grant without a plan, it's a no-no. We're not gonna get it. I mean, it's just simple as that. Then I talked to enough with these folks and talked to enough people that deals with this on a regular basis, and we need a plan. So we'll be looking into putting a planned budget that hopefully will get us to get some engineering, some drawings, some permits, some mitigation plan and things like that. So when we actually go for the big money, we have all of that in place, and so we can look into the future in a year, 2 years from now with a real good package. But we have to put some money into putting together this plan. So that's what we're really looking into it. But if you have different opinions as we get to that point, by any means we shall discuss. But that's sort of one of the things that I'm looking into it is making sure we do have those plans. And I would like to continue moving forward with this possible combined project, because I think we are getting some good feedback so far. But we certainly don't discount the fact that, the pier has, opportunity on its own, that if we don't feel like this is really working, that we should discount any other opportunities for grants on that as well. But we don't want to lose that mitigation opportunity, which apparently seems like to have some high value, agencies. So anyway, beyond that, I'm not going to read through all the meetings I had, but I did get, one thing that I did change here, the meeting I had with Dulce Energy actually got postponed for this coming Friday. I had that as, it was supposed to be last Friday. I was a bit sick that day. We do have, we had a request from Mr. Capri to show our efforts for the international terminal. And I put a list of things that we have done so far. Some of those are a while ago, some are more recent, some of those have been back and forth. But initially, as I came on board, I had a meeting with Ms. Mary Botkins, the lobbyist for the Longshore, and with Yale Fogarty and some of his friends came to my office. We all said we kind of tried to come up with a plan and how to maybe look into opportunities here in the Willamette Valley, because you know, when you look at the constraints of the deep draft, the bridge height, and the fact that we don't have rail, it's like I think our biggest opportunities maybe lies right here in the area. So because folks that are going much further than that, they'll probably take their stuff to Tacoma and even Portland. Now they're starting to ship. So we got to look over here. That doesn't mean we're not going to keep looking everywhere else either. So that's what we did. I got in touch with a lot of the folks there, the lobbyists that work with people from this area, and you'll see the result here on the list. And I don't know if you had an opportunity to, it's on our website, it's on the agenda, the list of that. Some of those people we're still talking, we're still going back and forth. That hasn't completely changed. One thing that I did actually finally got an answer today. I've been back and forth with Georgia Pacific to see, because I keep hearing that, well, maybe there's opportunities at Georgia Pacific. It's actually even our feasibility study, business, not feasibility study, but our business plan also has a comment about that. And I talked to CJ Drake today, and he said that they have actually done some economics, some studies. It's something that they've done internally that they don't, at this point, it's their plan. They don't want the public necessarily to see, but it was pretty clear that shipping through barges, it's not the most economical thing for them. So at this point in time, they will continue talking to us if anything changes, but I don't think we're going to be seeing any business from Georgia Pacific anytime soon. And from what he was explaining, I understand. And because every time you touch a product, it can be more costly, and that's the problem with not having rail here. That product would have to be touched too many times, and it would be costly, prohibitive for them. The other one thing that I did get besides what you see here is I showed that I had exchanged calls with Cascade Hardwood, and I had some comments here from Alan Brunstad, which apparently is not fully working the same position he was before, but he's working on the side with them. But Kent Jones from Cascade Hardwood reached out to me, and he said that he would like to meet with us. Maybe there's some things that may have changed. And so we'll meet with them, see what opportunities are still there. But as you can see, there are a few things that we're still working through. We still have possibilities. Those type of things don't happen night and day. Even some of the folks that show interest, they haven't come up with a full list of what their full needs are. Some of them may require some additional infrastructure, and that's when we have to look and see, you know, what would the port need to do in order to attract that customer, you know. So those are all things that we are going through and trying to figure out what is the best option. There's no doubt in my mind that bringing cargo here is a good opportunity for the port, and it would be probably the big money maker for the port if we get there. You know, well, we'll get there. It's like how fast we can get there, you know, and with who and how often. You know, it may be a lot of little opportunities that amount to a big thing for us, but you know, I don't know that one single customer that is going to come and bring us the big business. Because again, for those big customers, it's real hard to do it without rail. And even though folks have this, I keep hearing this comment that, well, we got ships here in the past, I get it. Problem is, in the very past, ships were smaller. A lot of the ships have grown quite large, just like you see the fishing boats, they doubling in size. Same thing is happening to ships. A lot of them have doubled in size, and you know what they did with a lot of small ships? They just took them apart. So a lot of those ships don't even exist anymore. So we can look into ocean-going barges, large barges, and things like that. Those are probably the things that we can get through our bridge and to our channel. I found one thing that I found that we could maybe reach out to was all this fish that again goes up to Washington. They go to a mothership here and then head over to Washington. And we're like, why can't we get some of that business here? You know, and I reach out to some of those folks and same complaint, we don't have enough draft here to bring them in. So again, if there's any questions about any of these, or if there's anything you feel like we should be doing different, by any means, you know.
So, are you sure the draft is correct? Because I know when we got done with the terminal project, it was 34.9. Is it not 34.9 anymore?
The NOAA chart shows 32.
That was, I couldn't tell you off the top of
You
my
might
head.
want to check because I know we had done it down to 30.
Oh no, 30. I'm sorry, 30. That's what they show. There may be times where there are you know, with the high tides and stuff, and then there are areas that may be low or high or whatever. But the general channel, according to the Corps, it's only 30.
You get that on the Coast Pilot. That's where that comes from. So in the Coast Pilot,
No, I'm sorry. It is done by NOAA, but provided by the Corps of Engineers.
yeah.
I just checked them because I know that when we did the terminal, we dredged it down to 34.9.
Right,
At the
maybe
dock.
by the terminal.
Yeah, and
but
the turning
the
basin.
channel, it's only
And the
30.
turning basin was 30.
Yeah.
And that was, but I just want to make sure because if this fellow is saying they need at least 32, if we're 35 at the dock,
Yeah,
there's a big difference there.
sure. That is actually one thing that I did double check because I remember I double checked with Aaron and we're like, is this right? Because people keep saying that it's deeper than that, and we looked together actually in the charts from, and then I read it in a couple other places that the channel is approved at 30. So in other words, even if it's a little deeper right now, it may work for a little while, but if the Corps decide not to go any deeper than that, that's what they approve currently. Therefore, they won't put any more money to go beyond the 30. And I mean, in trying to change that it's, all I know is Columbia River is a whole different story, but it took more than 20 years to get the Columbia River to be dredged to 33 feet, 3 extra feet.
I just want to make sure because I know in 2016, I mean, I was only one here then, but the state of Oregon gave us $1.8 million in harbor maintenance tax to dredge the channel from the bridge all the way to to the terminal and then do the turning basin, and then we paid an extra couple $100,000 and had a big to-do with the state not letting us do that dredging at the same time, and we needed to get it down to 35, and we got to 34.9, and I just want to make sure that we get.
I would love that if you were right, because that would make a huge difference in a lot of ways, but that is what I read in many places. I'll check again.
Yep.
But everything says that the federal government is authorized that channel to be dredged 30 feet.
But the berths, you're right, they're
The
definitely
birds,
deeper.
yeah, the birds
Yeah.
always.
There's still, we just had a survey done, and it's, I shouldn't say the berths, the west berth is,
Yeah.
it's still good.
I just want to make sure we have the right information out there, and that was
Absolutely.
that was a lot of money that
Oh yeah.
we got a lot of heat for getting all the harbor maintenance funds that year. We got
Uh-huh.
for the whole state of Oregon. We got it.
Well, and that could mean that maybe during that time they dredge a little bit further.
Yeah.
But the authorized channel in general
Yeah.
is at 30 feet. So maybe even if they do it for 1 year, if they're not going to continue, if that's not what is authorized for, what would end up happening is we'll bring a business that may work for 1 year and 2 years, and then third year
Yeah.
they can't do business because we can't bring it to that. But I absolutely will double check because we don't want to be wrong on that for sure. So that's all I have, unless you have any more questions.
Yeah, so I really appreciate this report on your efforts on the International Journal. I really enjoyed reading the summaries. And I was wondering, Paula, if it might be worthwhile to maybe just take a step further and actually build a spreadsheet or something so you can document this in terms of dates of contact and
Yeah.
follow up. Because I think because obviously there's a story here that comes out of all this, right? And then even giving us a report at the end of the year on your efforts for that year in terms of the International Terminal. And then back it up with the data of the work that you've done to discuss with potential clients and all the follow-up. Because I think what I can imagine over a period of time that you'll show a pretty detailed effort at networking with all the different contacts.
Absolutely.
To do your due diligence and uncovering all the possibilities. And certainly that's what we would like to show the district and everyone else, that we worked really hard, and staff's worked really hard to look at potentials at the International Terminal. And to document it and have it well documented.
It's funny you're saying that, Bill, because I was just having that conversation with Karen today in the office. I was like, there are a lot of things that sometimes you get, especially as hopefully I'll be around for a while, but, there's been a lot of general managers coming through and they're commissioners, because commissioners will pay more than the general managers in general. And every time you get new people always like a gung-ho about, why hasn't anybody, reach out to this person or that person or that, and well, maybe they have, what is there done about it? And if you don't have that information as a background, guess what? And that was a conversation I was having with CJ Drake today at Georgia Pacific, because Kevin Green would reach out to him. You talked to him. He had all this thing going on with Kevin. And then Don Parsons, same thing. And so it's like, here I am, third person, reaching out to them again. And well, some things you want to continue that relationship. You want to go back and, hey, has anything changed? Great, okay, I'm not going to bug you anymore. But in some instances, if you have a good history of why it didn't work, and you're not going to go and just, create all this effort for no reason. So that is exactly what I was talking to parents. You know what? We need to create maybe a better folder here for some of the marketing effort, and create some memorandum to file and put all this stuff in, so the new person can come and read through all of this stuff, because I think it's important. As I'm going through this, for instance, I learned, okay, well, Donman had gone through all this. He did a whole feasibility study on cruises. So I'm going through that right now, and I talked to Don a little bit about it. And the only reason that didn't go further is because Noah came on board and that became a bigger priority. And, and some of those things are good to know. And absolutely, having a good history of that is important. And I'll make sure that whoever comes after me will at least have something to read.
I think a distilled version of that list would be a good thing for Angela to get out to the public.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's already a public document at this point anyway, but maybe she can dress it up and share that with Newport.
Sure. And then the only other thing, I guess I didn't put in here, but we are working and finalizing that newsletter. Angela is really hard at work this week trying to put some draft out. So
Great.
I'll hopefully share that with you soon.
Okay. Anything else for Paula? Commissioner reports?
There's a call on NREL, that's National Resources Energy Lab. There's a 1-hour conference call tomorrow. I can forward the information to Paul if you guys want to listen. It's an introduction to wind energy. So if you want to listen into it, probably pretty dry, but I'll send it to Paul and she can send it out. You
Okay.
sign in for the webinar. And then Paula's 1-year anniversary is coming up in May. We need to probably the next meeting start going out with the review.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Jeff?
Yeah, I just wanted to take this opportunity of getting the EDA grant. Just wanted to compliment staff. And not just the EDA grant. If you look through everything we've talked about today, going on financially, operationally, coordinated efforts, synergy, the increase in business, planning for the future, working through different agencies, partnering with people in the public and through government. I just believe our staff's doing an excellent job, our leadership. And I believe we're seeing the fruit of a lot of the efforts and the good decision making and just the work together. So I thought the EDA grant, getting that was a good opportunity to say just kudos on just everything that's going on. It seems a good thing. I know there's a long way to go. But even also working on the 5-year plan, you can see bits and pieces of each month's reports that a lot of these tie into the 5-year plan, strategic plan. So, and I know staff, there's been a lot of turnover. Our business has been good. Each area has their busy times of year. They're different. And dealing with all those things with the high turnover, just kudos. I just really feel and see a lot of things coming together. So, and just good work on the EDA grant. I know Aaron's been working on that a long time. So just thanks for all your all's efforts. And that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Go.
I can't remember whether we talked about this or not. Jeff's joined a group called Positivity Groundfish. They're a group of processors and environmental groups and universities. I'm part of that, trying to advance the marketing of groundfish. So as a lot of you guys know, we've actually rebuilt a lot of the groundfish populations, but the price points are so low for the vessels that it's not economical for them to harvest a lot of blackfish and sole flatfish. We're leaving a couple 100 million pounds unharvested. It's allowed to be harvested. We just don't have markets at the right price points to make it work. So this group, Positivity Groundfish, is working to try to develop those markets. And if they're successful, that would be good for the fleet and to the port here on the West Coast. I was noticing, just one last comment, I was reading the latest statistics from NOAA, Fisheries Highlights for the year 2018. And actually, seafood production in the United States, total landings were down. And we're down for both aquaculture and commercial fisheries in 2018, which is really interesting. Not that you don't have blips like that, but basically we're pretty low in terms of total output. And these kinds of efforts to develop markets. And just one last comment about that is one of the challenges we have is that we lost those whitefish markets when we were rebuilding groundfish to things like imported tilapia, imported catfish from Asia. And now we're having a difficult time rebuilding those markets. It just shows the power and force of aquaculture in today's fisheries markets, and that it's a hugely competitive market, and it's going to require a lot of marketing efforts to rebuild for those products. Otherwise, we'll be leaving them in the ocean underutilized. That was the comment.
Interesting.
Okay, thank you. I like seeing the training in the reports, and it's good to see that we've been doing some training. I know there's more coming in the future, so thank you. Calendar for future considerations. Are there any comments on that? Okay. Last opportunity for public comment. 3 minutes limit per person. Does anyone have a public comment at this time? Okay, no public comments.
The only thing I would like to add is that during my absence here, since I'm taking vacation, so I'll be in DC with Walter here from the 1st through the 5th.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, until the 16th, I'll be in Brazil. Therefore, Aaron will be in charge of the office, so if there's anything, he's done it before.
Why is he Friday?
If he's still alive. So just be aware that, obviously he was the interim before. It's not like he doesn't know what he's doing. So,
Okay.
because I don't know how much I'll check my emails and so on, but I may be, the time difference is kind of difficult to follow through.
Okay, on that note, I'd like to close and adjourn the Tuesday, February 25th meeting. And its time is 7:25. Oh, 7:21.